Welcome to Game Over Edmonton, where your Edmonton Oilers just dropped game one of the Stanley Cup Final to the Florida Panthers. So I get it if you're not too pleased right now. But Avery, it's not all bad news, was it?
No, I don't think it was all bad news. This is a game in which the Oilers got 34, 35 shots on Sergei Bobrovsky. They controlled the pace for a lot of this game. And I would take that a lot because I really felt it was really more Florida hanging on for dear life than them really being in control of game one, Andrew.
I am with you there. I honestly think that the way that this game was talked about, and we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of the game in a second here, but I just want to get this out, and then we'll talk about where Game Over Edmonton is going to be next season. Uh, the way this game was talked about, both on air and on Twitter, from like establishment media folks, compared to Game Six between Edmonton and Dallas, kind of rubbed me the wrong way because I heard a lot of talk of like how great Dallas played in that last game and how Edmonton just shelled, and they did shell after getting the lead, right? And there was a
Mhm.
lot of questions about like, can Edmonton win one game off of Florida if they're going to play this poorly, ignoring the entire rest of the series. And then tonight, in a game where the Oilers pretty much dominate the puck, you have a bunch of people being like, "Oh, the Florida Panthers just absolutely incredible tonight defensively," and I don't think they were like. Obviously, they were engaged. They played a
Mhm.
good game that way, but I don't think they controlled the game. I thought Edmonton controlled the game, but they didn't get the breaks.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, and full credit to Florida for
Yeah,
jumping on Oiler mistakes and making them pay. That's full credit. That's what good teams do when it comes into a Stanley Cup final. But a lot of the shots, a lot of the action was faced towards Sergei Bobrovsky. You saw McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, Hyman get their chances. And really, if a puck bounces here or there, we're probably waiting for overtime to be over, or Edmonton's probably up in this game 3 or 4-2.
yes, very easily. All right, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about Bobrovsky, but before we do, I got to tell everyone that although Game Over Edmonton is broadcasting currently right now from the Game Over Network channel, in the fall, when next season begins, it'll be on its own channel, Game Over Edmonton, which will feature more than just the live post-game recordings, or not recordings, sorry, the live post-game shows. There will be other kinds of videos that'll be all sorts of cool stuff that we're going to be presenting, and you can find that channel. Click on the Game Over Network right below this video. Scroll on down to the featured channel section on the very bottom of the page. Click Game Over Edmonton, smash subscribe, and then click that drop down menu and hit the reminder bell or the notification bell, whatever the heck it is. They make you subscribe twice now on YouTube, so please do it. It'll really help us out, and you'll get a lot of Game Over Edmonton content next year from more Edmonton people, not a Montreal guy standing in last minute. And I'm doing my best, and I'm trying to serve Edmonton fans, make sure we have Edmonton voices on here all playoffs long. But next year, we promise that will be the case. Leading the show will be Edmonton Oilers fans' voices. So go check that out. Subscribe to Game Over Edmonton. Stay subscribed to the Game Over Network channel. We're gonna have lots of content on here as well, like maybe Game Over World Juniors next season. We might be expanding into other areas. We'll see what we can manage, but definitely go subscribe to Game Over Edmonton. We can't wait to show you what we're building on these channels going into next season. All right, Avery. Obviously, the story of the game tonight is Bob. It's
Yeah.
two letters. Well, I guess yeah, two letters, like three total letters, I guess, two different letters in that name. And, Jay Onright is ringing in my head all game long. I'm going to throw out something with Bob here
Yes.
that I think most people agree with, but we don't ever really vocalize. If you look at Bobrovsky's feats in the NHL, you can put him in the same category based on the accomplishments alone as guys like Lundqvist, Carey Price, even Roberto Luongo. But we don't usually, because he's either like this or he's terrible. And that weird juxtaposition where he vacillates between these seasons where he kills teams and seasons like this where he's absolutely incredible prevents us from really seeing what kind of goaltender he really is. It's a really strange career that he's had. Like, he's pretty old at this point to be like the number one guy. A lot of people assumed that he was going to be washed by this point in that contract. Before this point in that contract, I think a lot of us thought that he was washed, myself included. I am amazed at how often he's able to recover himself from what looks like the end of his career performance wise. What is it with this guy? Like, I've never seen a goalie like this.
I don't know. That's a really good question. He's had multiple acts over his career many times, and of course, I know it's not really one for one, but it reminds me in a way, and of course, less money, how someone like Dwayne Rollison was able to revive his career in multiple acts, multiple chapters. You had like Rollison with chapters in Buffalo, Minnesota, Edmonton, Tampa Bay. It reminds me in that vein in which you think he's done, and he finds a way that a new chapter. I admire that about his career.
Yeah, I do too. And, it's easy to say, like, well, if he was more consistent, we'd be thinking of him as, like one of the greats. But I think we kind of still should, at least for this generation. Like, I don't think you can put him up there with, like, in my opinion, Lundqvist is the top goalie of this current generation. If you overlap that into Luongo, then I guess Luongo would overtake him for me. But Luongo's kind of that bridge between the Belfour, Waugh, Broder, Hasek generation and the
Mm-hmm.
Lundqvist, Price, Bobrovsky generation. And I don't think because he was the solo guy that bridged that he gets the appreciation that he actually deserves. But Bobrovsky's kind of the same way. Like, he's jumped around different teams only now at the end of, like, I don't want to say the end of his career, but he's 35 years old. He'll be 36 before next season starts. So near the end of his career, has he actually been on a team that is close to challenging for a Stanley Cup? And he's been money when they needed him to be. Like, that's massive.
Yeah, no, it is massive. And this is a guy who we mentioned it. He was in Florida. He was in Philadelphia before. He was in Columbus. He wasn't really in a ton of situations beforehand where he was gonna win a Stanley Cup. And even until recently, until the past few years, Florida was never really that cup contending team. It was always Tampa Bay. It was always state of Florida goes through Tampa. It's only been a recent thing in the past few years where they've been able to build a winner. And full credit to Bill Zito. He's done a masterful job building a Panthers team that's gotten to this place. And he's the kind of goaltender that if Bobrovsky able to pull this off again, you gotta think that his all-time accolades will get a different look if Florida does win this series, if they find a way to win this.
Yeah, I mean, if he wins the Stanley Cup here, I feel like there's a legit argument that he could be in the Hall of Fame. Like, he's got two Vezinas, right?
He
Like,
does.
one of the only goalies of that generation to have two Vezinas, by the way. Like, it's pretty damn rare. It's a weird situation, but I thought he was absolutely stunning tonight in both how keyed in he was in terms of puck tracking and how well he was able to just shut down plays in front of his net. Like, he was on puck so fast, whether it was covering them or deflecting passes himself. Like, I think it was in the second period, Draisaitl kind of snuck in and I thought made a deceptive, like an incredible deceptive play to the side of Bobrovsky and cleared himself space to go across the net, I believe, to Hyman. But Bobrovsky actually got his stick on the puck and stopped the pass from materializing into the right direction. Like, he was just on it tonight.
It was. He mentioned the pass. Like that was the big thing. I was watching this game and realizing like that's the big thing is to cut down those chances near the front of the net or one timers. For Florida, a big key. I said it on a Panthers podcast a couple of days ago. How having active sticks is going to be a major thing for Florida to cut down on those Edmonton chances in front of the net, and he was great at doing that as well. And he's making stops, making plays that you didn't see Jake Ottinger do, who is also an elite goaltender. He was making saves and plays that Ottinger couldn't do in the last round for Dallas.
Yeah, I wonder if that's one of those things that, we talk about older goaltenders a lot as, like, there was a time in hockey analysis where the idea of when a goaltender hits their peak is much later than a forward. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of data came out to suggest that, like, no, it's not that much different. It's like goalies also peak relatively early in their 20s and then kind of hold and trend downward and more rapidly after 30. But some of the goalies that stick around, I wonder if it's that veteran savvy of just having so many reps that allows them to control the game like this, because it is rarely a young goaltender. Like, you can have a young goaltender who stands in their head, right?
Yeah.
I think like Halak in the 2010 playoffs, but Halak was like a last desperate attempt, like a wall at the goal line, keeping things out in that 2010 Habs run. But he didn't dominate the flow in the zone like Bobrovsky did tonight. He didn't protect the area. You know, he I know it's a bad like easy thing to go back on, but I think like the Jay Onrait Bobrovsky thing, he was patrolling everything there
Yeah.
tonight. He looked like a cop.
No,
And
he.
I don't mean that as an insult, even though I kind of do, but a little bit of an insult, not to Bobrovsky, but usually the association. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, you're completely right in that. That's a good point. He mentioned how older goaltenders have seen certain things. He mentioned earlier, guys like Martin Brodeur, Roberto Luongo, goaltenders who just found a way to be that general, be that calming force in the back of the and we've had young goaltenders in the past steal games, win series. I mean, probably the greatest example in the past 20 or so years was a couple of guys, Jordan Binnington, Cam Ward. Cam Ward in 2006 came in and shut down the Oilers in the Cup Final. So there have been those cases, but you're right. It's been generally more those older goaltenders who've been here, done that, who are the guys who find ways to win the cups.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, you know. You always have that. You want to have that guy on your team, the old guy who hasn't won, that you want to win it for, but you don't ever really see that talked about as the goalie very often. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's the case here for Florida. He's their old guy. It was the case for the Oilers in 2006, right, with Dwayne Roloson.
Yeah.
So I that comparison comes back again. It works. Thanks for bringing that up, Avery. But we don't want to get stuck too much on Bobrovsky, though, even if he is the main story of the game. Let's be honest. But the other one that keeps on getting brought up, and I've seen it a couple times in the chat already, saw it all over social media, not so much on the broadcast, weirdly. Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci. This was an issue coming into this series. It was not addressed during the game. It maintains itself as an issue. What do you see going on there, Avery? Because I don't understand what the reluctance is to break those guys up. I understand, like, Nurse is going to stay in that second pair no matter what.
Of course.
But like, CC is not so much better than the Oilers' other defensemen that he can't move down a spot at the least.
It is very strange. It was a thing that Jay Woodcroft lived and died by as a head coach. Is a thing that Chris Knobloch at times got away from. I'm not sure why. Like, when I heard that it was a pairing in the practice in Sunrise, I thought personally it's a red herring. I thought it was I thought it was Knobloch trying to fool Florida into thinking he's gonna play those two as a pairing in game one. He did again, and once again we saw Nurse and Cece unable to clear the puck out of their own zone. Just too much, trying to do too much, and just not being aware of what their main tasks are. And again, I've said it before on different shows. When Darnell Nurse is just able to just focus on being physical and being that fourth forward, he's great. When you have him doing too much, it's when you run into trouble again. And if I'm Chris Knobloch, if I'm the rest of that coaching staff, I gotta think long and hard about splitting those two up and considering putting Nurse with somebody else. Look, be it an Ekholm, be it Evan Bouchard. Just you gotta get away from that pairing because time and time and time again, it does not work, Andrew. It doesn't.
It doesn't. And even if, like, there have been games where the underlying numbers are not bad, but they still manage to get bullied in goals against because the attention to detail is not there. And I think you're right that Nurse is being asked to do too much
Mm-hmm.
in trying to cover for Cece's game. And I think there's a lot of people who talk about Darnell Nurse as if he's like this shitty player because he gets paid
Right?
a lot of money, and he's definitely not worth that kind of money in terms of his output on the ice, but he's not a shitty player. Like,
He's
Darnell Nurse
not.
is a good player who has a lot of good skills. He's not a flawless player, but very few players in the NHL are. I do think he can be that number 3 for Edmonton on a like, at the very least, decent second pair. But he's got to have somebody that complements him, and it's beyond clear that CC and him do not complement each other. So I know it's tough to tinker with things in the Stanley Cup Final, but this is what coaches get paid for.
Yeah, exactly. It's very true. I know I had some people on Twitter who were tweeting at me to call out Chris Knoblauch. And if I was in Florida right now, I probably might have asked Chris, do you foresee yourself possibly changing your D pairings? Because something has to change. One of the big things that I know it's only game one, but you don't want to go you don't want to go back to Edmonton down 0-2. Now there's still time. You can get the split, but you want to put your best foot forward and not have a repeat of what happened in game one. Because again, Florida's a team that will capitalize on those simple mistakes you've made here tonight.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to talk about McDavid and Draisaitl in a minute here, and I also want to touch on Stu Skinner. But before we do, I got to tell y'all where you can find Game Over Winnipeg next season. Yes, we are advertising other shows on these market channels. This is what we have to do to build our subscriber base, because we need 50 subscribers on every channel before the beginning of next October in order to live stream. So please get us there. We're there on most of them, but not all of them. So check out Game Over Winnipeg for us. Game Over Winnipeg is broadcasting from the Game Over Network channel for right now during the playoffs. However, in October, the network relaunches for real, and Game Over Winnipeg gets its own channel. So for all of your Winnipeg Jets content, fun, news, and analysis, head on over to the Game Over Winnipeg channel from the Game Over Network channel. Open it in a new tab right now, scroll past my ugly mug, all the way down, and click on the Winnipeg channel from our featured channels section. Click subscribe and make sure you hit that reminder bell so that you get notified whenever we post a video or go live. Tell all your Jets fan friends and family to come check out our awesome community. We promise they won't regret it. And make sure on this video you smash that like button right into oblivion. All right, we're back with Avery Lewis McDougall, the legendary man from Avery's Sports Show from the Hockey News. He covers every sport for every outlet you can imagine. He's the hardest worker in sports business and show business. Avery, I noticed McDavid hard matched in terms of even strength play by himself against the Barkov line, against the top pair for the Florida Panthers. They tried to contain him. Did not work. He dominated those matchups. And then Draisaitl also dominated his matchups. But then at the end of the game, searching for a goal, Chris Knoblauch pushes them together, trying to dial everything up to 11 to push through Bobrovsky. I know this isn't the plan long term, but does it hurt the team to put them together so often? Because I noticed coming off of a power play when the Oilers don't score, when that unit of all the Oilers' best players are out on the ice for 2 straight minutes, the next shift gets hairy a lot. And I wonder, when you're chasing a goal like that, when you're top loading so significantly to get it, is there too much of a drawback with the rest of the lineup having to cover with no McDavid and Draisaitl?
No, totally. You know what? When you're chasing a goal with maybe a minute left in the game or whatever, I understand wanting to load up that top line. But when you're doing it so often in regulation, when you're trying to get that equalizer or get yourself back into one, you really do bring down the rest of the roster. And maybe it's a little bit of coaching inexperience again, or a little bit of desperation to chase that goal. But Chris Knoblauch doesn't do it a ton, but it can't keep happening in this series. You have to trust the rest of your roster that they can get the tying goal, bring your game back into one. Because in the past, in this postseason, we've seen Chris Knoblauch has had the ability to trust his roster outside of McDavid and Draisaitl to tie a game, to win a game. We've seen him deploy that trust in everybody else, not naming David or Draisaitl. So doing it now in game one is a little bit troubling outside of, say, the last minute of playing a game.
Yeah, it is. And, we talk a lot about the defense for the Oilers as well, but a lot of that pressure that is being put on the rest of the roster is going to be exerted on the defense when McDavid and Draisaitl are together, because they're also together with Bouchard and Ekholm at the end of the game, right? So the rest of that defense core that's already struggling is now behind the eight ball. They don't have one of those two guys to feed to get the puck out of trouble or keep the offense going in the offensive zone. So we do have to understand all of that when we're criticizing the defense as well, right? So it's a tough one. And also, as much as the push has been on the Nurse CC pairing, I thought it'd be unfair to not bring up the fact that even on the goal where CC lost his battle on the dump in, like really can't excuse that. Nurse lost his man coming back. There's no
Yes.
back pressure.
None.
None. So I know that the Oilers were very focused on getting through Bobrovsky, but that wasn't the only time in this game where the back pressure just wasn't there. They got to
No.
back check those forwards.
It's true, and that's been a thing that Edmonton has had. It's been a constant thing in which, yeah, the forwards got back check. The forwards can't be just gliding in when there's a Panther coming in on Stuart Skinner. We saw it the first goal. It was twice. We saw it with Carter Verhaeghe's first goal. We saw Em Rodriguez's goal. Where's that forward? Where's that forward helping out your D-men, helping out your goaltenders? It's got to be drilled into these guys, and they know it. But you cannot be that lackadaisical. I mean, yes, it can happen it happened before in other playoff series, but especially here in the Stanley Cup Final, you cannot be that unaware of a forward coming in untouched like that.
No, you can't. And then I think the one that drove it home to me, like I thought the Oilers fell asleep for the first 10 or 12 minutes of the second period.
Mhm.
And like, I don't want to criticize them too harshly because at the end of the day, they carried almost 63% of the expected goals in this game, almost 59% of the shot attempts, and they actually held the edge in both of those metrics all three periods against a very, very good Panthers team who was playing on home ice. So like there was a lot of good happening here for the Edmonton Oilers, but after that goal where they go down 2-0, they had a shift moments later where they had probably the worst line change I saw in the entire playoffs, where a completely nothing play turned into a 4-on-2 where I feel like the Panthers got as many shots on that 4-on-2. I mean, Broberg stopped quite a few of them, I guess,
Mhm.
as they had at that point up into the game. They had like 5 shots before that, and after they had like 6 or 8 or something like that. So they might have changed it and credited Broberg with a few more shots or shot blocks, but I was surprised how sleepy they were. And I think that rests on the coaching staff as well with a bad line change.
Yeah, totally. You got to be sharper than that. You can't have those lapses happening in the Cup final. And credit to Broberg, credit to what he's done. But yeah, you got to figure things out. I think it's a coaching staff that's in the Cup final for the first time trying to figure it out. And the only thing I will really say is I'd rather have these lapses and miscues happen in a game one as opposed to a game two or a game five or a game six where the cup is on the line.
Yeah, yeah, I'm 100% with you, and this is why I like at this point especially I'm really not worried about the Edmonton Oilers. I have the same feeling as I had after Game 5 against Dallas, and I know the Oilers won that game, but I see this as a team that's very determined to take control of this series, and the fact is, I didn't think they would be able to come out and dominate the Panthers territorially like this,
Hmm.
not on Florida ice. So that bodes well to me. And the other thing is, I saw some people kind of clowning on Stu Skinner tonight, and I agree that I think it wasn't the Verhage goal, it was the second goal. He does not track I think it's Rodriguez coming in, and he loses him in coverage, but he's not the only person who made a mistake on that goal. And the fact is, the shots that he was beat on tonight, I feel like we're like 20% conversion rate shots, which means even on an average night, there's a 20% chance that's just going to beat you, even if you're in the right position. He just didn't get enough to work with to bail himself out of what that performance looks like because of the two great chances he was victim to early. And that kind of sucks because there were moments where I thought he looked okay. And I don't think he was the reason why the Oilers lost this one.
No, he wasn't. And of course, you want him to make those saves on the Verhage and the Rodriguez goal. But no, I thought he wasn't the reason. There weren't saves in which you watch, you thought, you gotta make that save, Stuart. It was really more the guys around him didn't do enough to make sure those shots didn't come on him and didn't get to his net. So really, I thought Stewart had a fine night. Didn't face a ton of shots because the pressure was majority on Bobrovsky tonight. But in large part, when he was asked to make saves, he did his job. Really, it was just two unfortunate situations that led to those high danger scoring chances that beat him. But really, no, I'm not gonna put really any blame on Stuart Skinner for what happened tonight for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. So I think at the very least, the Oilers can go into game two thinking that, yes, they're going to have to solve Bobrovsky, but it's not like they got blown out at the other end either.
No,
So, if the mission is we got to score three, I don't think that's unreasonable. I think a couple of bounces the right way tonight and they still score three, even with how well Bobrovsky was playing.
yeah, no, it's exactly true. And it felt like at times, it felt like, Andrew, they were so close to getting that dam to burst. It felt like they were so close. I still think they are. I mean, yes, Florida is the Eastern Conference champion, but I don't know if Florida, and I felt the same way with Dallas. I don't know how much more this team can take of Edmonton pressure for a full series. I don't know if they can handle that in back to back, even with the rest. I don't know if they can handle another game in which Edmonton comes out and are dominating the shot charts 14-4 early. I think that dam will break if they keep the pressure up on Borowski come game two.
Yeah, I think we're in for a game where it's possible that Edmonton chases Bobrovsky the next game. Not that it's going to be Bobrovsky's fault whatsoever. It's just
Mhm.
that after tonight, I think we're going to see them come out shot out of an absolute cannon. Because there was those moments in the second where they were a little sleepy. Where you're
Yeah.
like, oh no, have they been like defeated already? Right? They're kind of like letting their foot off the gas pedal. But they kept on throwing the kitchen sink at the goalie every moment they possibly could, trying to get tips. Like they had creative plays going through a very structured Florida defense. There were a lot of cross crease passes that went through, maybe too much play along the perimeter,
Mhm.
but I feel like they're one of the few teams that can punish people routinely from the perimeter,
Yeah.
both because Draisaitl is an ace shooter and Bouchard has that bomb, and then you've got guys like Hyman in the front that can knock home loose pucks. So especially when all the big guys are out there, they can find ways to score from the perimeter. I really like the Oilers play tonight overall.
Yeah, and I want to say I think Florida. I know Florida's penalty kill is strong as well, but boy, did they get lucky and to not allow at least one goal on the power play because they
Oh,
kept going to the box. They kept giving Edmonton chances to get back into this, and that penalty kill held in ways that other teams in the postseason have not been able to.
yeah, I totally agree. I don't know if that holds going forward because there was a lot of near misses for the Florida
It's
Panthers.
true.
All right, coming up, we're gonna talk about Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard and what that pairing does so well and why it's been such a big part of this run for the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe we'll touch on their PK as well because listen, if the Oilers come back, it's down 1-0 in the series. They have plenty of time to fix this. But if the Oilers win the cup this year, I feel like this run that their penalty killing unit is on will be the stuff of legends that we talk about 20 years from
Mhm.
now, 30 years from now. It's been that good. So before we get into all that, check out Game Over Calgary next season.
Game Over Calgary is relaunching in October. For all your Game Over Calgary content, make sure you subscribe to our Calgary-specific YouTube channel. Open the Game Over Network YouTube page in a new tab from this video, scroll past Andrew talking, and click on the Game Over Calgary channel in our featured channel section. Click subscribe and make sure you hit the drop-down menu to get notified when we post videos or go live. Tell all your Flames fan friends and family to check it out and join our awesome community. And make sure you smash the like button on this video right into oblivion.
We are back with Avery Lewis McDougall. I am Andrew Berkshire. stepping in, I guess, for Game Over Edmonton here in the Stanley Cup Final. Peter Klein is going to host the next couple episodes for us, so you won't have to stare at me too much longer. But this series is going to be fun, and there's lots to talk about. I think one of the most interesting things is Ekholm and Bouchard, and I was trying to go back mentally to different Stanley Cup Finals, and I don't have the Steve Dangle trivia memory. Like, that's not how my memory works. I find I have to look at something and that reminds me, and then I can rebuild the picture in my brain. Like, I don't have the trivia thing. I like to dig in deep, but I don't have the trivia stuff. But I couldn't remember a Stanley Cup finalist that got there and had only two defensemen really carrying the bag. And someone had mentioned Montreal in 2021, but even then, you know, Weber and Petrie were the guys carrying the bag, but Joel Edmondson played very, very well with Jeff Petrie in that final. And Ben Sherratt, people think that he played really well, but he actually was still Ben Sherratt and terrible. But Petrie and Weber were on different pairings, whereas Ekholm and Bouchard are together. And the gap in the Oilers' effectiveness when they're on the ice versus when any other defenseman is on the ice is staggering. So the goals for percentage at even strength, I don't know if this is updated yet for tonight on Natural Stat Trick, for Matthias Ekholm so far in the playoffs is 63% in favor of Edmonton. Evan Bouchard, 69.4% in favor of Edmonton. Your next best defenseman on the Oilers is Brett Kulak at 52.63. So the Oilers have outscored teams 10-9 while Kulak is on the ice. After that, it's Cody Ceci at 7 goals for 14 against.
Oof.
Vincent Desharnais, 5 goals for 12 goals against. Darnell Nurse, 9 goals for 23 goals against. So the Oilers are essentially going from hyper elite team with their top pairing to worse than lottery team results with their bottom 4 on defense. And I'm wondering, without that like big 3 functioning well, if the Oilers can manage to win this, because it seems to be pretty rare. The Penguins, I remember having a unit of 6 that was led by Ron friggin' Hainsey one year that managed to win. But usually you like that unit at least had like uniform depth, and there was something there. It wasn't a bunch of glaring weaknesses, where it seems like Nurse has the ability to be one of those guys, but as we mentioned, put in a bad position with Ceci. Do you see a solution where they can not be so torn asunder whenever Bouchard and Ekholm are not on the ice?
Honestly, it's the $1 million question, because you pointed out right there those numbers, those goals for, those goals against when Ekholm and Bouchard are on, and when those guys aren't on. It's really be a tough thing for me just to find the perfect solution. But you gotta start experimenting with who else can pair up with those guys, who else can Evan Bouchard help, or Matthias Ekholm help. Because going as is, you're not going to win a cup final with just those 2 guys leading your I mean, you could, but you need everybody else helping them. At certain points in time, Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard got to go to the bench. They need a breather. They can't play all 60 minutes for a game. It isn't 1920s anymore when guys like, I don't know, King Clancy did that. Like, you can't, it can't be that way anymore. And Chris Knobloch is going to have to really look at, like, I would love to see how Matthias Ekholm would look with a Darnell Nurse. I think that would be an interesting thing to see, if you have someone like an Ekholm focusing only on being that ultra defensive defenseman. But I do like the fact we're having this debate in a way, because it's showing that how Evan Bouchard has developed and has become a much better D-man. Because remember, people are saying, oh, Bouchard can't do A, B, C, D. All he's good for is just a slap shot. All he's just good for is points. But defensively, teams rarely score when that pairing is on the ice. Evan Bouchard becoming a more defensively aware D-man. And talking to Matthias Ekholm, I did a feature on Ekholm back in October for the Hockey News. And Matthias told me that he isn't really going out there and teaching Evan Bouchard anything really. It's more about reinforcing that he can be a top pairing D-man and learning from him, because Ekholm has said himself, that Bouchard has made him become a better offensive D-man. It's more I'm learning from him than him learning from me on the back end, really.
I love the veterans who are willing to admit that. That they're actually learning from the young kids. It's actually
Yes.
pretty rare, I find, unless you get them in like a really comfortable situation. But yeah, I completely agree. Bouchard's growth has been incredible. And, you know, justifiably, a lot of the focus is always on McDavid and Draisaitl. But I think you could honestly make a very, very convincing argument that Evan Bouchard could be up for like a Conn Smythe consideration for this team. That's how good I believe he's been in these playoffs and how impactful that pairing has been. Like, not to disregard anything that Ekholm has contributed,
Mhm.
but it's clear that Bouchard is the straw that stirs the drink for the most part. Like, that's the guy that the pair hinges on. Ekholm can still have great results without Bouchard, but I don't think like this. you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Evan Bouchard, the fact that he's 5 assists away from tying the all-time record for assists by a D-man, that to me, that still blows my mind. He'll tie a mark that's held by guys like Brian Leach, Paul Coffey. Those are guys who are in the Hall of Fame right now. And the fact that he's closing in on marks held by them is just mind-blowing.
It really is. All right. What was the other thing that I said I was going to bring up? I forget already. I didn't have it written down. Well, somebody in the comments can bring it up here. I guess we can shift over to our press conference and we'll answer some questions from the chat if you want to leave them in. But while I'm waiting for your questions to jump in there, I am going to show you all how to subscribe to Game Over Toronto.
Game Over Toronto is broadcasting from the Game Over Network channel for the playoffs, but in October, the network launches for real. For all your Game Over Toronto content, make sure you subscribe to our Toronto-specific YouTube channel. Open the Game Over Network YouTube page in a new tab from this video, scroll past the bald guy talking, and click on Game Over Toronto channel in our featured channels section. Click subscribe and make sure you hit the drop-down menu to get notified when we post videos or go live. Tell all your Maple Leaf fan friends and family to check it out, and make sure you smash that like button.
All right, Avery, we've got some questions to go here. I saw there was a bunch during the chat here. Connor Cahill says, I think this will end up in a 5-game series and a first cup win for the Panthers. They're a much, much bigger point to prove than Edmonton. Their momentum, their desire is much higher than Edmonton's. Not only is their team play on top, they have an insane goalie in Bobrovsky. They've got that X factor that other teams that Edmonton faced didn't have. Plus, they beat Tampa Bay, Boston, and New York Rangers. That was a tougher pathway than Edmonton dealt with. You know what? I don't agree, Connor. I don't know how you feel, Avery, but I look at the path that Florida took, and I don't want to take anything away from them because I think they're a fantastic team that absolutely deserves to be back here a second year in a row. I don't think they had a tough path. I think people overestimate Tampa Bay based on what they've done previously. I think they're a middle of the road team at best this year. At best. There were times where I wasn't sure they were even going to make the playoffs despite Kucherov having a absolutely insane season. Boston, again, like a good team in terms of standings, but they're not what they were either. With Bergeron gone, they aren't able to hard match in the playoffs like they used to. And the Rangers, they're a tough team to get through because they have great goaltending and, really good quick strike offense. A lot of really offensively talented players. But again, not a dominant even strength team. So like these teams all had significant weaknesses. I think the best team that either of these teams faced before this was Edmonton facing Dallas. And I honestly think LA is about equivalent to the teams that Florida had to put out, but I do think Florida is a better team than Dallas. So this is the toughest matchup Edmonton has faced so far. Where are you at with this, Avery?
Yeah, I agree with you, Andrew, in assessing Tampa Bay and Boston. I felt like there was two teams who good, a lot of high-profile players who can still put up the points numbers, but I felt like they are two end-of-the-road teams where this was their last stand, especially with Tampa Bay, with the injuries, Vasilevsky, the goaltending situation being in flux for a good chunk of the season. Tampa Bay almost being in that wild card spot where you do, it's like, are they going to make it? Are they not going to get in? So, and Boston again, a lot of guys who they've traded, signed elsewhere, retired. Boston again felt like a team that, yeah, they can still be a playoff team, but how much longer are they going to be in that realm of an actual Eastern Conference threat? I mean, the Rangers were the one team I thought were, yes, the Rangers were a team that I genuinely thought, oh, they could do some damage in Eastern Conference. That's a team I generally really do. I really give a lot of appreciation for when it comes to the road. Like, honestly, I would also give credit to, now some might think it's a hot take, but I would say Vancouver was very team
Yes.
than Boston and Tampa. Because Vancouver won their division. Vancouver had scoring up and down their lineup. It wasn't only guys like Quinn Hughes, JT Miller. You also had guys like Pia Suter, Dakota Joshua. You had a well-rounded team in the Vancouver Canucks that took Edmonton to 7 games and came a bounce or two away from going to a conference final.
Yeah, I think people underestimate Vancouver based on the last couple of seasons, right? And frankly, how this season started, where, everyone thought they were a pretender. I thought they were a pretender. Their underlying numbers were terrible, and they were scoring at will. Thatcher Demko was stopping everything, and then the shooting percentage just kept going. It kept going, and then over time, they just started to believe in the vibes and became a good team as the season went on. And even when the shooting percentage did eventually bottom out, the Canucks kept winning. Like, I think people underestimate how tough that team was to match up against this year. They were a team of destiny, and to eliminate the team of destiny, even if they're an underdog by like the stats, is a tough thing to do. Like, both these teams had amazing moments to get into the Stanley Cup Final, but I do think actually that Edmonton had a slightly tougher road, even though I think the East is a tougher conference overall. I think Florida got the right road to get to the Stanley Cup Final this year, and I think that it kind of is proof positive that they're so healthy compared to last season. Like, last season, by this stage, they had like four healthy guys and everybody else was broken and just trying to stay alive during the game. Matthew Tkachuk was carried out of his bed by his brother to get into games. So yeah, I don't know if I agree with the Panthers having a really tough road here and more to prove than the Oilers. I think the Oilers have more to prove than anyone. They have so much pressure on them. McDavid wants to win. The pressure of the Oilers finally getting to this point with McDavid and Draisaitl, like all of Canada, the boomer generation watching that Boston Pizza commercial being like, yeah, I'll cheer for the team that I hate in the final because it's Canadian, that like nationalism that permeates Canadian hockey fandom. There's a ton of pressure on the Oilers to pull this off.
Yeah, it's so true. And by the way, those commercials, like, how are those commercials not branded as an ad? Because what was it, game 4, Edmonton Dallas, where game 4, game 5 in Edmonton, where you had the fake Jets fan, you had actual dark guy, you had like people there like, how is that not branded as an ad? And that should have been an ad. That was not. It was presented as legitimate fans when it clearly wasn't. How was that allowed?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, honestly, watching tonight in the Stanley Cup Final, having to deal with the board ads, it drives me nuts. Like, do you really have to have on a dump in or a controlled entry a puck going along the boards while there's a puck going along the boards? Like, what are you doing? Why do you have to mess with my eyes like that? I guess I'm getting old, man, but I find that so distracting trying to watch the game and actually build some kind of cogent analysis. And I guess it's a little inside baseball for those who are like not heavy in that. But like, when I'm trying to decide like who's winning a board battle, who's making the right play in tight, and there's like a car zooming around the boards, Batman, fuck off, man. Like, I know you gotta make money, but that is garbage shit to deal with.
It is. And my thing with that is that I know they want people to look at the ads. Like, only thing people are going to think about is this ad is annoying. They're going to remember what the ad is. All of you remember that this is annoying. Stop doing this. So
100%. Oh, and Connor Cahill is a Canucks fan, and he was saying that the Canucks did have some massive problems. Like, listen, Connor, I agree. They did have a bad power play, especially in the playoffs. But like every team that doesn't win, we can point at their flaws because every team has flaws. So like, I don't think that Vancouver was like a legitimate cup threat, but I think they were a very good team that was very tough to put down. You know, I think that's the big thing that I think about with Vancouver. They're bringing up Corey Perry. Avery, how would you react if you went to 4 Stanley Cup Finals with 4 different teams and lost 4 times?
Oh, I'd be furious. Like, I'd be beyond pissed off if I go to the Cup Final that many times, this many different teams, and I keep losing. I'd be furious. I'd be so mad.
Like, it's so lucky that Corey Perry won that Stanley Cup early in his career. I believe it was his rookie year, right? And it's just been chasing that dream ever since, right? Like, can you imagine if he hadn't won that, what he would think of somebody like Pat Maroon, who won 3 in a row? Like, he must, like, the jealousy must be so severe for Corey Perry, because he's a guy that, like, he brings it in the playoffs. I don't think he had a great game tonight, but he does bring it in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, like, I know he won the one Anaheim, but when you keep playing, when you keep going to the Cup Final after that one, you want to win more. And if I kept going in my career, I kept losing, like, that would just be just so irritating.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, Connor had another comment here, said he gets where I'm coming from, but Florida want that cup. It'd be their first ever. They've been in this position before, and he says that McDavid has never been in the final, has no idea what that experience is like. Same with Draisaitl. I agree in part, Connor. It does matter having that poise in the final, and I think if you've made it there before, maybe you have a more appreciation for how fleeting it can be. But also, the Oilers core is not a bunch of young guys in their like early 20s anymore, right? Like, I think Draisaitl is 28. These guys are very aware by now that like their career could pass by and they could never get another chance here. And I didn't feel like McDavid or Draisaitl flinched tonight under the pressure. I thought they were both really quite solid.
Yeah, this isn't really a team with yes, there's guys who are newcomers to the Cup Final, like the bunch of this roster is, but it isn't really a team full of youngsters. There were the guys who are like 20 to 25 years old. It's really only for the most part, it's Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway as the actual true young guys on this roster in large part.
Yeah. So I don't know if that plays in as much as we want to believe. You know, I'm just not sure. I think I come out of this game, I'm pretty confident that the Oilers can turn this around and at the very least make this a good series. I don't think it's going to be over early. I think these two teams are way too good. Last year when Florida got here, I wasn't like that impressed with what their performance was. But this year, I think you could make like an extremely strong argument that these, at the very least, are 2 of the like best 4 teams in the league this year. And that doesn't always happen. You know, there can be a Cinderella team. They're like one of the best teams can be taken out by a hot goalie, and then you get a mishmash of whatever in the final. This year, I do think these are probably the 2 best teams in the league.
Oh, totally. And it's a good point, Andrew, how you mentioned how there's no real Cinderella. I mean, I know when the Final Four was determined, people talked about Edmonton as being that odd team out, as if Edmonton snuck in with, say, like 90 points and we're 2 games above 500. This is a team that had a 16-game win streak, put up another year of over 100 points. I mean, yes, they weren't coming into the Final Four. They weren't what a Dallas was at times, or a New York or a Florida was. But this was still a very good team that finished second in their division once again, and had, like I mentioned a second ago, another year of over 100 points. And this was a team coming in that, barely had 90 points and got in through the second wild card. Then, you could say that they are that Cinderella team that maybe didn't belong.
And also, we have to remember that they started the season with the worst run of bad luck. It was like Vancouver stole all of their shooting talent, right? Like,
and turned it around.
This team was 31st, like a month and a half into the season.
It's true.
And after that, I'm pretty sure, like in terms of record and points percentage, like after that point, they were either the best or second best team in the league, or like close to it. Like they were on fire. And even in that first stretch where they weren't winning, everything was good from like the inputs. Like they were still dominating games. They were doing things the right way. Jay Woodcroft loses his job, and then, you know, things turn around. I still don't think it was Woodcroft's fault, but Knobloch seems to be a pretty good coach. This is a very legit Oilers team, and like every team, they have weaknesses, but I think it does a disservice to them to think of them as not a legit team and framing it as like them being this huge Cinderella story. Yeah, I'm with you, Avery. That doesn't work for me. Oh, the thing I meant to bring up before was their PK.
Yes.
Stunning. Like the pressure that they are able to exert. I am floored by how clinical they are on the PK.
Yeah, no, they are 30 penalty kills in a row, and they are closing in on the all-time record, which Christian Drandimski from TNT Sports pointed out on his Twitter that the all-time record is Anaheim killing off 36 penalties, and I believe 06 or 07 the all-time record. So they are 7 away from breaking the all-time record for most kills in a row.
Yeah, they're right there. And if they actually manage that, like, I don't know, it's tough to lose a series when you're killing every single penalty. It's a pretty good advantage. Oh man, Connor asks if I was insinuating they were deliberately losing because they wanted Woodcroft out. No. I think the goaltending was just terrible early on, and like every bad break that could possibly happen happened. I think McDavid was injured at the start of the year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had an upper body injury. It didn't say what exactly beyond upper body, but it appeared to be like, I think like either his sternum or ribs, something upper body that we know was irking McDavid, who came back early to play in the Heritage Classic, and I laughed because I remember you were there, Andrew. Our we're live post game live show where we all declared the Oilers are back, and they were not back just quite yet after that win.
Yeah, they took a little bit longer to get fully back, but they did get there, and here they are in the Stanley Cup Final. So the Oilers lose, get shut out in the first game. I don't think that's happening again, even with how great Bob was in this one. I can't see another 0-goal game for this Oilers team, not with the way they've been playing. I'm Andrew Berkshire. He is Avery Lewis McDougall. We're going to be back on Game Over Edmonton to cover the Stanley Cup Final. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Avery, before we go, anything you want to plug?
Yes, you can find a lot of my work on my Twitter account, Avery, AVRY, and I'll be doing a lot of stuff during the playoffs. For the hockey news, most likely be doing a lot more video stuff during the Cup Finals. So you'll be seeing my mug around Rogers Place, maybe with some special guests doing videos for the hockey news this postseason for the Cup Finals. So stay tuned for that.
Heck yeah, let's check it out. All right, thanks to David W., Connor Cahill, AJ, Alan Morris, and many more who joined us tonight in the live chat. We really enjoy interacting with you. It's part of what makes these streams so special. We will see you again on Monday night. Peter Klein will be your host. See you then.